I feel like a lot of the times when, and especially if they're going online, if you're looking for a HELOC, you probably already don't qualify because
Yeah.
people don't realize, like, it's limited equity and credit tightening and all of that, where a cash out refinance is probably a little more easier to get qualified for in that
Hmm.
situation, especially paying off debt and things like that. So it's very smart that you say just continue with the HELOC, get invested, get them going.
Hmm.
And also being a broker, I don't have to turn around and start the process quote unquote all over, and be able, give them the options when they can realize that, I mean, it is their best option. It's not like I'm trying to sell them something
Yeah.
they don't need, right? Like, it's just
Right.
unfortunately not that the way they're going to have to go. So one of the topics I wanted to talk to you about was kind of like online lead gen. So as far as that conversion piece and that conversation in converting online leads, I really like a lot of the rebuttaling, the kind of like role play that you have in your videos for sure. I definitely know, like, the word play is very impactful, especially for online leads when you don't know these people and you're trying to create a connection and a sense of trust with them. So the
Yeah.
wordplay that in your videos, as far as like wordplay, rebuttals, things like that, like, yes, very impactful.
So with regards to like your current vendors, because I imagine you're buying internet leads, right? Are you or referrals? Like how do you
So
generate?
yeah, so right now I am 100% referral based. That's where but I did start an online lead through Google Ads. Now I haven't had it in play because with the what is it, A2P text approval, it's just like taking a little while for that to get approved. But I'm expecting it to start going live next week because I think the
Okay,
number
cool.
just got approved. So starting out, I want to attract HELOCs, so for refis, and then hopefully get that going. Just because I feel that's the immediate need, where I'm actually going to probably get the most of my return um, right now. But then I'll go back to purchase because I still want to serve my referral partners. I don't think that's something I'm trying to not continue to do.
For sure. You definitely want to nourish that because that's a good steady stream of referrals. They're free and they're easier to convert. With respect to like internet aggregate leads, I haven't tried like Google ads. The vendors that I primarily use are Free Rate Update and Lending Tree. And with internet leads, it's a different animal, right? So like, you have to have your systems on point, and it takes a while for you to kind of get that cadence down. Where I would say that most brokers or most LOs in general will contact the internet lead and say, hey, this is Daniel or Daniel Niekart with West Capital Lending. I got your inquiry. Let's talk, right? And what we have to recognize that because that's what they're hearing from everyone else, and they're going to get very frustrated, right? So, with the systems that you use, like the CRM that I use, I invested in a software called Shape. Have you ever heard of them?
Yes.
Okay, so that's my CRM, and I have texting capabilities with them. So while everyone else is kind of being held back, it allows me to actually be different. So it's got cool tricks of everything from having like a local presence on the number that you text them from and call them from. So that's a feature that I really like, but it also does drip campaigns not only through text but also through the emails. And with the email, first and foremost, you have to have some sort of tool that creates like an estimate, right? And that estimate, of course, it's just like a commercial. So you're always going to show best case scenario. You're pricing it out as a very competitive offer, but you usually put at least one, two, or three different options. So even though I, want to do cash out refinance, I understand that a lot of people are looking for HELOCs. So I'll do three options. The very first one will be a cash out refi. The second one's a HELOC, and then the third is a HE loan. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then what I do, my emails, it's a little bit different because I put a picture of my family on there, and then I put a link on my reviews on Experience and say, hey, check out my pedigree. But that's the first thing that I do is I take that information from the inquiry and I shoot out that estimate, because now it changes my approach. So instead of me calling and saying, hey, what's your goals? I'm actually calling to confirm that they got the quote, and I need their help to confirm that the numbers are accurate. And I'll say sometimes, depending on the site that you filled out, they'll auto populate those numbers. So I want to make sure that it's correct, and I'll leave you alone. I'll be here when you're ready. You know what I mean? And so in that delivery, I'm doing a few things. Number one is I don't approach them and say like, hey, this is Daniel Niekart with West Capital Lending. Like if you were my lead, right, I'd be like, hey, Roxann, it's Daniel getting back to you. Sorry I missed your call, right? That'd be like a voicemail, because I understand that they're reading it, right? Most people, when they get a voicemail on their phone, they don't listen to it. They'll actually read it. It's weird, right? I do. And even if they do listen to it, what you have to understand that first, 2-3 seconds is the hook, whether or not they're going to continue reading your message or they're going to continue listening to that voicemail. So it's very strategic with regards like, hey, Roxann, this is Daniel. Sorry, I missed your call. So now they're like, who, right? And then they want to read more. And then I say, I did send it out to you. The subject line says your requested equity quote. So it's me, because I'm sure you're getting a ton of messages, and it came from Daniel. Do me a favor, look at those options, and then let me know if the numbers are correct, because sometimes it's auto-populated. And I want to make sure that you have information that is reliable. So now I change the dynamic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And then what they do is when they reply and say, okay, yeah, I got it. And oftentimes they'll engage and say, I didn't need that much, right? Or can you change it to this amount? But now I have them, right? So what I'll do is I'll say, yeah, absolutely. But which of the three are you most curious about? And then they'll go into equity line. Whichever one they say, I call them right then and there, because I want to get them on the phone. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So with internet aggregate leads, one thing that I learned is automation is helpful, but you can't fully rely on automation. And I think a lot of loan officers, we get comfortable with automation, and we kind of delegate those tasks because it is tedious, and that's why I think Shape software is pretty helpful, because it's like, you could dial from it, and you could do voicemail drops and then quickly send a text. So all those have to almost be in line, right? So my pre-recorded voicemail, which I often leave because they're getting blown up, right? So they're going to forward you to voicemail. It sounds very much like, again, hey, this is Daniel. I sent the information you requested. Please confirm you got it. I'm going to text you also to let you know that I stopped by. Right, some to that effect. And then right away I send a text, and again, it's never, hey, this is Daniel Niekart with West Capital Lending. I don't never open up that way. Almost it's always like, hey, Roxann, it's Daniel. Check your voicemail. I did email you the information. Reply back, because that campaign is about to expire. Does that make sense? So now they're like, okay, well, the rates is pretty aggressive, and that's probably why it's lower than everyone else, because there's a specific campaign. So I'm using creativity in that aspect, where I'm hitting them not only with a voicemail, not only with a call, but also a text and an email. And then it's also important that when you call them, like I have pre-recorded voicemails where I don't have to wait for the voicemail pickup. I'll just drop the voicemail, and then but I'll do it twice. So I'll call them, goes a voicemail, drop a message, and then I call them again. And then the second voicemail that's already pre-recorded and saying, hey, I'm not sure if I, if my first voicemail went through, because this is important and it's time sensitive. Again, this is Daniel. I just need to make sure you got the details that you requested, right? So I'm hitting them twice, and then I'm immediately texting them, and then also emailing them, right? And then once I get engagement, the very first thing that I do is I try and give them a call, right? So but you have to almost like anchor it. So in other words, like you send them a text and say, great thing you called, perfect timing, and it's the body is where they're reading it. I'm calling, right? Because I want them to, because I know they're looking at their phone, and if they're reading the message, likely they'll pick up the phone because the numbers match. So
Right.
I think that's probably a strategic way with how to deal with these aggregate leads, and how to separate yourself from a broker is more or less like, I'm super easy to work with. I've been doing this for a very long time. I'll let my numbers speak for themselves. You'll see it on the email. But as a wholesale broker, I basically get you wholesale discounts to avoid the retail markup that you would get with like a retail lender or bank. So like if you ever worked with Loan Depot or like Rocket Mortgage, I could provide a significantly lower rate compared to them. I just need, as long as your FICO is 500, you know what I mean? Because they're, oh yeah, my FICO is, I got good credit. Perfect. You know what I mean? Because you want them to agree and move forward. And then right from there, I'll gauge, and then I'll say, with regards to the cash, that campaign's pretty specific. So let me just make sure, it even applies to you. And if not, maybe I'll point you in another direction. But with regards to the cash, what's it for? Now I open up into the discovery. But it's very important to, understand that if they're just doing home improvements, then I'm not going to necessarily push like a HELOC or a cash out, right? Like I'm very selective because they don't necessarily need a HELOC because it's a big lump sum of cash. Instead, I'll educate them on a HELOC, and I don't mind booking a HELOC because I know I have a client to touch base later to consolidate that, right? So it opens me up for that. Plus, our HELOCs are super automated, and it's really no hard work at all,
Right.
But I'll definitely give it a good go because like what you said, you want to track them with the HELOC and let them know things like, as long as your FICO is 500, blah, 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 I can help you. Because what happens is when it turns out that they don't qualify for a HELOC, but you are able to get their credit report and see that they have so much debt or they need help, then you go over the HELOC option as if they could get it, but then you actually go over, the refinance and say,
Yeah.
in my opinion, I think this would probably be the most effective way because you're doing so many things with the refinance. And then the close is, so based on this information, which one do you think works best for your plan? And then they'll say, they're like, I still want to go with the HELOC. Great, let's go and get started, and then I'll get the steps, right? Even though I know I can't do a HELOC, I'm still getting the steps.
Yeah.
Because when I get that full file, then I can at least come back and say, hey, I talked to the investor, and we would be doing a disservice if we didn't help you in this full way. So let me show you what the savings looks like. I understand you want to protect that interest rate, but you have to look at the bigger picture, right? The rates are going to fall in less than a year, and we have broker rebates to make sure that your minimal costs on the next go around. So now I'm giving myself the opportunity to go more into that, right? As opposed to where most loan officers will just get a request and then they'll just prepare that and then that's it. Is that maybe right?
Yeah.
Or they'll quickly say like, I'm sorry, you don't qualify for
We don't do
HELOC.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You got to get them like salary, you got to get them to agree and want something. And then from there, you have the opportunity to get something in return. And
Right.
when you have something in return, they're a little bit more vested because they're also thinking like, okay, what will I do with this money? Right? Okay, cool. I'm going to get this money. I'm going to get this money. And so they almost it's like they spend it already, right? They never even had it yet. So they're
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then you want to catch them at that climatic state, but you're very, selective, and you have to change your whole cadence and be used to that approach, and I think that's probably a very helpful way to go about
Yeah, I think
aggregate
it's
leads.
really big, the whole just continue with the HELOC, because that was kind of, I think, what I emailed you on the question. It's kind of like, okay, well, let me digress here real quick. When you come across your leads, do the people, like, do the majority qualify for the HELOC that they're looking for?
No.
Or that's what I
No.
thought. And so that's
Yeah.
how I feel. I feel like a lot of the times when, and especially if they're going online, if you're looking for a HELOC, you probably already don't qualify, because
Yeah.
people don't realize, like, it's limited equity and, credit tightening and all of that, where a cash out refinance is probably a little more easier to get qualified for in that
Hmm.
situation, especially paying off debt and things like that. So it's very smart that you say, just continue with the HELOC, get invested, get them going,
Hmm.
because, and also being a broker, I don't have to turn around and start the process, quote unquote, all over, and
Right.
be able, give them the options when they can realize that, I mean, it is their best option. It's not like I'm trying to sell them something
Yeah.
they don't need, right? Like, it's just,
Right.
unfortunately, that the way they're going to have to go. So
Yeah.
it's really
You have
good.
to get them engaged. So like I have a 3-step, pre-approval process, like a template. So like step one is they create their user profile, which is basically an online application through my portal. And then step two is in that portal, there's certain docs that they have to upload. And then step three, I have them pay for their own credit report. And others are like, wow, how are you able to get them to pay for their credit report? And it's because I finesse it in a way where I already have them salivating off of just a few minute call and say, because I told them those things I just shared with you, and say, okay, you know what, all these other lenders, most of them can't even do a HELOC. And if they can, they're going to require like a 700 FICO, a super low DTI, and even an appraisal. I have access to home equity lines of credit. I don't need an appraisal. I can get it done in 5 days.
Right.
So I already got them hooked on that. But I'll at least get some of the nuts and bolts and figure out what their emotions are. And then, once I feel it's right, I'll task them with that. And they respond very well. And then when I send them that email, the 3 approval steps, I also attach my V card, and I tell them to open it up on their cell phone and save it to their contacts, because they're going to get a ton of calls, and if I have any questions on how to get them their HELOC faster or better, I want you to know it's me, not one of the 900 lenders that's calling you. So I condition them. I set up the right expectation, and then it also gives me reasons to then follow back up, because my drip campaign is completely different based on that status of application link sent. So now it goes into like, hey, just want to make sure you got it. Hey, if you want the figures that we talked about, I need this done. Does that make sense? Because
Yeah.
there are certain changes. And so and then I kind of delegate it from there. But I'll also leave, I'll put like a reminder on the following day that person, I talk to them and, follow up on the 3 steps, but they typically get it done pretty quick. And so now I know that they're engaged because they paid for their credit report, they got their steps, and I got a full file. You know what I mean? And now I'm going to go ahead and spend time on them, as opposed to giving too much information and not getting anything in return. I think a lot of LOs kind of meet, it's to their demise. They'll spin their wheels, they'll work on a file, and then they won't actually get anything from it. And now they're chasing because the person they never had their foot in the game. So what's to make them, they already have all the information they need. Now they're going to go ahead and listen to everyone else. Does
So
that
good.
help?
Yeah.
That's
God, of
awesome.
course it helps.
Yeah, right.
Now it's your time to hit the thumbs up if this video helped you. I love engaging with you in the comment section below. Lastly, please share this video with someone else that can benefit from this topic. Thanks for subscribing. Look out for the notification for my next video, and I'll see you there.